Hey, I'm Harmony. I'm usually a watercolor artist, but today I'm going to show you how I turn something like this into a giant 3D sculpture. Let's go.
Recently, I got to spend time in this stunning art studio. I took a workshop with world-renowned artist Jacques Tilly. He and his team create large sculptures like you see here, or basically giant carnival floats that are shown primarily in Duesseldorf, Germany. He's known for his caricature, satire, biting political statements. And every year you can find photos of the wagons in news outlets around the world. I can't show you any here because, well, they haven't been released yet, but I did get tons of stunning footage of the workspace, and it just really brought life to me because it was so interesting to see all the different pieces and learn all about the different steps. And I find this kind of art studio just an absolutely gorgeous mess. So the workshop was 2 days. It included, like you see here, some theory and some demonstrations, and then once that was covered, we got to try our hand at some of kind of simple exercises, basically, to understand the technique that Jacques Tilly and his team use. So created some ball structures, and then we moved on to something a little bigger. We created this heart right here. This one is mine. And that concluded the exercises. So we could really jump in. I had brought a little drawing of a bumblebee that I wanted to transform into like a 3D sculpture. Now, here you see Jacques actually translating that sketch into an architectural drawing, which is super cool. It came with a kind of scale and everything I needed to do, but I had to sit down and do the math. I have never worked with an architectural drawing or really done much in 3D shape. I usually do like 2D watercolor paintings. So this was totally new to me, and it was really thrilling, and every step was a new experience. Like here, using power tools. I have never used a power tool in my life. But this is towards the end of day 1 of the workshop, and I was basically building the base off of that architectural drawing that Jacques had made for me. And you'll see me here again using tools and things, but don't be fooled. I had lots of help. I was probably the most inexperienced person in that workshop, but by the end of day 1, I had, like the basic shape, the structure done with the help from his team. And now you see me here on day 2, adding on the wire to really make the shape, fully match up to my drawing and my vision. Obviously it looks like this is like super easy and super fast. Trust me, it is not, but I got such an incredible thrill out of it. I was basically smiling, not on the outside, but on the inside all day. Like this is, like I said, day 2, and I just couldn't get enough of it. I was so incredibly happy, and it's just so cool to really stretch yourself, learn a totally different technique, do a lot of kind of manual work with your hand, and just, I don't know, do you get that feeling when you get to try out new artwork? That is something that just totally lights me up with passion and with joy, and this was no different. This was probably one of the best workshops and art experiences I ever got to experience in my life. So just a few more pieces of footage here as I put on the finishing touches, and here you go. This is like the middle of day 2 of the workshop, and basically the 3D model is done, and I get to move on to this stage, which is similar to like a paper mache technique, but they do have their own materials, their own way that is slightly different from what you might have done if you did like papier mache in I don't know, school or something. And so I had tons of fun with this. The expectation from the workshop is actually not that you complete a figure, But again, I had people jumping in at the end to help me because they knew with a young kid at home, this was my chance to really get it done. Here you see it. This is what my figurine looked like by the end of the workshop. You had to let it dry in the sun.
Lieber Jacques, was würdest du jemandem empfehlen, der das Video gesehen hat und jetzt total Lust hat, Interesse hat, sowas auch zu bauen?
Ja, das ist ja schön, wenn das Menschen motiviert, was gesehen wurde, aber man darf den Draht nicht unterschätzen. Der hat seine Tücken, da sollte man sich nicht selbstständig dran wagen, das muss man wirklich lernen, dafür ist dieser Workshop da. Also ich kann nur jedem empfehlen, der Lust hat, das auch zu machen, sich einfach hier anzumelden, einen Grundkurs Drahten mitzumachen, um dann voll ausgebildet die Aktion zu starten, so eine Figur selber zu bauen. Also das ist meine Empfehlung.
Super, danke dir. Es hat so Spaß gemacht. Daumen hoch, ich kann es nur empfehlen.
Okay, danke schön.
Danke.
So now I move on to the final phase of this project, buying the supplies that I need or think I need to finish this project. There was no time allotted in the workshop to do the painting, so I tried to find my own approach using some cheap supplies. I obviously didn't want to use my expensive tiny watercolor brushes, and I also didn't have a cool spray system like they do at the professional art studio. So yeah, when I finally sat down or stood up to do this project, I realized how much more difficult the painting process actually is than you might ever imagine. Spoiler alert, it did not turn out how I had hoped it would. It was really quite challenging with the structure of the chicken wire and painting over that and those large brushes I had. I mean, it's kind of a mess. You can see what's going on here. But anyway, while I try to rescue the end of this project and show you the end result, let me share a little more about the workshop. Some people that attended were actually part of the carnival group, so they will use this skill to build carnival wagons, which is so cool. There were also some theater troupes there to do set design, and then there were people like me who just love creativity, love learning new things, and wanted to give it a go. By the way, this is Fimo. You have to harden it in the oven. I made little feet and hands and little eyes, just little pieces. I thought it might look good. I don't know, it's okay. But that's what's going on here. And so what else can I tell you about the workshop? I'm going to leave a link below. This is totally unsponsored. I did pay for the course, and to me it was completely worth it. I absolutely loved it. Really got me out of my comfort zone and made me create this thing in the end. Maybe not the most beautiful thing I have ever created, but it is so incredibly fun. And by the way, I have a book tip in the description below as well if you're interested in seeing more.